There are two types of anger that we can experience: conscious anger and unconscious anger. And these are two very different experiences. Conscious anger is thoughtful. It is mindful. It is a raised voice to convey an important message that is having trouble getting heard. It is organizing a protest, organizing resistance. And it can even be challenging our inner disturbance into very peaceful, thoughtful, even calm action in order to bring about a positive change. Whether it is raising our voice at a child who ran into the street without looking both ways and endangering himself. And so we are not angry at the child, but we know that we need to convey the importance of looking both ways, being careful, and the danger that mindlessness puts ourselves in when we are crossing the street. Welcome to Path to Peace with Todd Perlmutter. I'm your host, Todd Perlmutter. Our world is a projection of our collective consciousness. The more peace we bring into our lives, the more peace we bring into this world. So let the transformation begin. Unconscious anger is the one we really want to watch out for. It is the one that sabotages our future for present moment gratification, for really the ego's self-righteousness, where there is nothing to be gained, and in fact, we are really hurting our cause. We are looking like a raving lunatic, and we are embarrassing ourselves. We are saying things in the heat of the moment that we will later regret and that we may not even mean. There's a beautiful saying in much of the world, which is that words are like arrows, and once they are fired and in the air, we cannot take them back. So be very careful and precise with the words you say, because they may hurt someone for a lifetime. We can't take back what we said. We can say we didn't mean it and apologize, but those words have been heard. And so it's not whether anger is right or wrong, whether it's justified or not, because our feelings are not wrong. We have them for a reason. They tell us what needs to change, what is unacceptable, what we should not be like, as well as what we should be like. And we know from anger how other people's behaviors make us feel, and how our potential words, behaviors, and actions will make other people feel. It is that empathy. It is that guiding light that tells us what we are doing and how it will affect others. As a social species, we are always receiving cues from others about what behavior is acceptable, what behavior brings about good feelings in others, what brings joy to others, and what brings out anger. If walking down the street and punching people in the face made them laugh and smile and thank us, well, then we'd all be punching each other all the time in the face everywhere we go. It would just be a nice thing to do. And so these feelings are important. They are not something to stuff down. They are not something to avoid. They are not something to resist or fear. Just like everything else that crosses our field of awareness, it is meant to be explored with neutrality, with that inner peace. And yes, even anger can be looked at. We can face it. We can be curious about what it's trying to show us, because this naturally creates distance between our true, eternally peaceful selves and the fluctuations of our ego, of the thinking mind and all of its content, the chaos, the ups and downs, the incessant thinking and narrating of our life experience. The real question is simply, is this anger being expressed in a conscious or unconscious way? Is it helping or hurting both myself and the other party? Because anger is hurtful to the person who is feeling the anger. The ego may find great pleasure in anger and expressing anger and telling people how we feel, even if it's very hurtful. Oftentimes, the more hurtful, the better the ego feels. But the body is in a stress response. It is tensing up all the muscles, all the organs, all the blood vessels. And this is why so much research has come out from Harvard University and Columbia University showing that anger and emotional upset triggers heart attacks and strokes. So it's not just something that makes us miserable, which we all can feel deep down. We all know anger disturbs our peace and joy. It is not happiness. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And so it's really a matter of life and death that we release that unconscious anger, that we are able to process those emotions, that we are able to stay present and conscious when we are overtaken by a storm of mental thoughts telling us how we were wronged, how much injustice we've faced, how unfair the treatment we've received is, how cruel and thoughtless other people can be. And even though that all may be true, they are still just one person's out of 8 billion opinions, an inner monologue narrating a situation that is already over. And so this is where consciousness comes into play. And consciousness means simply to be aware, not to lose ourselves to thoughts, not to attach ourselves to the past so that we miss this present moment. Because all anger is a response. It is a reaction to something in the past. And the present moment is the healing balm that will soothe our pain and anger. We don't have to be traumatized if we stay present and if we let time wash away those moments as soon as they arrive and as soon as they leave. And so the more we can stay with this moment, the more we can respond to whatever just happened with calm clarity, without attaching ourselves to a word somebody said, which is so often what sets us off. And as we move on from that moment and we're in a new moment that is not as bad, we can calm ourselves. We can heal that stress response, and we can go into an immediate state of rest and recovery so that what we say next is infused with actual language that another person might be able to be receptive towards. Because when we respond in anger, nobody listens. It is never the best way to get our point across to an adult, because they put up their ego defensive walls and they cannot listen. If what we say is infused with love and their well-being and compassion, without a trace of anger, we can say truly constructively critical things And people are much more willing to be open to that. But there are certain times in our lives where we do need constructive anger, conscious anger. Very seldom, but there are times when we have said something over and over again and someone's not listening, and we have to shake them out of their complacency. And with self-awareness, this can be done elegantly. This can be done with the intention of long-term good for all parties. I have some stories myself of times where I was just unable to get through to someone, and I did not want to raise my voice. I did not want to project anger, but it was the only way to get someone to listen to something that was urgently important. There was this one instance not too long ago where my landlord of the apartment I was staying in, her family and a friend of theirs had come into my apartment without my permission, and they were not leaving. They were refusing to leave. And so I did have to raise my voice and become very forceful, like the gorilla beating his chest. And I had to scream repeatedly, "Get out, get out. Do I need to call the police?" And, finally that situation resolved itself. But after saying quietly, calmly, several times to leave and getting nowhere, conscious anger was a conscious choice to try to persuade them. And maybe Gandhi or Jesus would be more creative than I am and have a more clever solution. But this was a very conscious choice. I wasn't losing my temper and screaming nonsense, or I wasn't attacking them or provoking them any further. I was just very focused on using all of my tools of persuasion at my disposal to get these people to leave. And that was an example where I felt conscious anger was justified. Conscious anger is a powerful tool that many movements of positive change in society were founded on. To numb ourselves to injustice would be to hurt ourselves in the long run. But if we respond unconsciously, unwisely, if we become violent and then there is a violent response towards us, then we are simply prolonging and amplifying a cycle of violence and cruelty. And we immediately discredit our own organization. And the most successful movements that I can think of in the past 100 years were Martin Luther King and Mahatma Gandhi. Because if they had turned violent, that would justify their oppressors being violent towards them. And the oppressors wanted it. They wanted their unconscious reaction. They wanted those crowds to tarnish their image and let the public see how the oppressors were justified in cracking down. They were so loving towards their oppressors that they won and achieved great change. Martin Luther King furthered the civil rights movement, and Mahatma Gandhi defeated the British Empire, and both with nonviolent, non-cooperation. It is very hard to hate someone who loves you. And if one side is being violent and aggressive, and the other side is showing restraint and compassion. Then the contrast of good and evil becomes crystal clear. And if we are on the compassionate side, we are able to avoid turning into the thing we're fighting against. Because if we get unconsciously angry at someone who did something unkind to us, we are now behaving unkind, and we are our enemy. Love is not some pie-in-the-sky, naive idea. It is the refusal to dehumanize the opposition, the other side. It is to never forget their humanity, the causes and conditions that led to who they are today, and to never give up hope that there can be reconciliation, that there can be progress, and that we can live together in harmony because we are all one people. We all have a duty to protect ourselves. We all have an obligation to leave this planet in some way better than we found it. Whether that is for our family, our community, our country, or on a global scale. But if our anger hurts our future well-being, then we have lost the bigger perspective. We have lost sight of our true goals. And we have really lost ourselves to that mental story playing on loop in our mind. And we would benefit immensely, physically, mentally, and spiritually, to develop that ability to become present, to stay with this moment, to let the past go away as it already has. It doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean stuffing down. It simply means stepping into reality. If there is justified anger, we have two responsibilities to deal with it in a healthy way. And the first one is to make sure we are breathing. Make sure we can calm down on a physical level. Just deepen that breath, calm the breath, slow the breath down, and make sure we are not in a hyper-tense situation that diminishes our immune system and is going to give us a heart attack. Allow the body to witness the breath so as we can direct our focus away from that mental story. The second thing we can do is ask ourselves, how can we channel that anger into something positive? Maybe it's joining a group who is fighting that injustice. Maybe it's taking a toxic coworker to lunch and trying to bury the hatchet and to create some common bond between the two of you. Or if that person is too toxic, maybe it's job hunting. Maybe it is getting on a different team or a different project. Remember, all grudges, all resentments, all disagreements are not real. They are only existing in one, two, or more people's minds. They are ego created. They are imagined realities that have no bearing on the physical world we live in. They are something that each of us either holds on to or lets go. And we can all choose to let go of unconscious anger. Even when it's justified, we want to turn that unconscious anger into conscious anger. And we want to shine the light of consciousness on that mental story, which is a fiction, which is 1/8 billionth of the planet's opinion. Not that it's wrong, not that it's right. It is just part of the bigger story. And it is a story that we choose to believe or not. And with a broader perspective, we realize that these little fights in our mind are not so important. There may be action we need to take. There may be a conscious expression of that anger that is necessary. But if we stay unconsciously angry, we will have no skill or wisdom to come up with a rational plan of action. And the greater inner stillness we have, the greater the fight and battle we can take on to bring about positive change. Because that unconscious anger is deadly. It is draining. It is not sustainable. But inner stillness with outward action is sustainable. And this is how we overcome stress. We don't avoid it. We don't seek it out and try to build up a tolerance, but we just end up drinking more or eating our pain. We simply learn to engage with it without letting it inside of us. And this is how we can achieve anything we want in life. Because there will be stressful situations we find ourselves in. But letting it inside of us is an unconscious choice. And when we become conscious, present, alert, aware, yet relaxed, that stress cannot get inside of us. And so we may still need to give an impassioned speech that expresses the anger and injustice, but we do so consciously. This way we keep our wits about us, keep our blood pressure low and our immune system strong. And it is truly the only way to achieve our goals, because we have two options if we want a peaceful life. Obliterate all of our enemies, half the planet, or we create a roadmap towards peace, harmony, and coexistence. And that is a much more fun path to take. Much love. And before you go, if you happen to read my book, Grief and Spiritual Healing, Surviving Life After Loss, and if it helped you in some way, please consider going to Amazon and leaving a review, because this is how it can help someone else. These reviews really help people choose which book to read, and your honest review can help someone else who's going through that most difficult of times. So pause this, click your Amazon app on your phone, and get some good karma. Thank you. You have been listening to Path to Peace with Todd Perlmutter. Being here and putting in this important and noble work is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and others. If you found this podcast even a little helpful, please make sure to leave a review so it can reach others who may be in need. And remember, the path to peace starts with a single step.